2022 marks 200 years since Jean-François Champollion famously cracked the code. He deciphered ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs.
For centuries, the cryptic symbols carved into the walls of ancient Egyptian temples and tombs have both fascinated and puzzled historians, linguists, and archaeologists. These hieroglyphs, sacred carvings, were more than just art. They were a full-blown system of communication used by one of the most advanced civilizations of the ancient world. But despite the breakthroughs brought by the Rosetta Stone and the efforts of scholars over hundreds of years, many hieroglyphic inscriptions have remained stubbornly obscure. That is, until now. In an astonishing leap forward, artificial intelligence has finally cracked some of Egypt's most enigmatic writings, and what it reveals could fundamentally change how we see human history. It started with a collaboration between Egyptologists and AI researchers who trained powerful neural networks on thousands of previously translated hieroglyphs. Unlike human translators, AI systems can process massive amounts of data in seconds and detect linguistic patterns invisible to even the most seasoned scholars. The result? Translations of previously indecipherable texts, some hidden in remote tombs, others faded by time, have suddenly come to life, bringing with them a flood of revelations that stretch far beyond Egypt's borders. Some of these newly translated inscriptions seem to point to forgotten technologies, astronomical knowledge, and even philosophical insights that predate similar developments in other ancient civilizations. Among the most startling discoveries are references to what appear to be complex understandings of the cosmos, advanced healing practices, and cryptic warnings about events that may have affected not just Egypt, but the entire world. One such translation came from a hidden chamber inside the Great Pyramid of Giza, uncovered only recently thanks to thermal imaging and non-invasive scanning technologies. Inscribed on the walls were lines of hieroglyphs never before seen. When passed through the AI model, the resulting translation shocked experts. It described a celestial alignment involving the star Sirius, a mysterious awakening of the eye, and a catastrophic shift that divided the lands and veiled the sky. To some researchers, these phrases seemed metaphorical, but others interpreted them as possible historical records of massive events, perhaps even a lost memory of a comet impact, a solar storm, or a volcanic eruption that changed the course of civilizations. Equally remarkable were the translations found in tombs far away from the royal dynasties of Egypt. In a small, largely unstudied site in the western desert, AI revealed the story of a traveler, possibly a merchant or scholar, who wrote of a land where the sun sleeps, describing what some believe might be references to distant places far outside the borders of ancient Egypt. The hieroglyphs mention stars that rise where the sea ends and creatures unknown to Nile Valley fauna. This has sparked a storm of speculation. Could ancient Egyptians have traveled or traded much farther than previously thought? Or did they possess knowledge passed down from even older civilizations? AI's ability to decipher these texts has also reignited debate around the legend of the so-called Hall of Records, a mythical library said to be hidden somewhere beneath the Sphinx or within the Giza Plateau, preserving knowledge from a time before the pharaohs. While no physical hall has yet been found, several of the newly translated inscriptions curiously reference a house of eternal memory, guarded by stone sentinels and sealed from the eyes of men. For decades, such descriptions were dismissed as religious metaphors, but now some are asking whether these could be literal directions to a lost archive. Even more intriguing is how some of these texts describe human origins. A set of carvings found in the Temple of Esna were once thought to be poetic hymns. But under the scrutiny of AI translation, they now appear to detail a process by which the breath was placed into clay and the form was stirred with fire, language eerily similar to origin myths found in Mesopotamia, and even the biblical Genesis. Scholars are re-examining the idea that these mythologies evolved independently. Instead, a growing theory suggests that many ancient cultures may have drawn from a shared, now-lost source of knowledge, one that predates written history. Of course, not all scholars agree with these radical interpretations. Traditional Egyptologists caution against over-reliance on AI, warning that while machines can parse language patterns, they might misinterpret cultural context. But even they admit that the AI's translations offer new paths of inquiry, and, at the very least, are bringing attention to texts long ignored or misunderstood. Some of the most controversial translations come from a scroll buried in a sealed niche near the temple of Seti Thurs at Abydos. Once dismissed as damaged beyond repair, the scroll was digitally reconstructed and scanned by AI. What emerged stunned the academic community. The text appears to describe the watchers in the sky and speaks of a time when the stars walked among men. It mentions beings that gave wisdom but demanded silence, and a veil that was placed over humanity's understanding. While mainstream scholars interpret this as allegory or religious text, alternative historians believe it might point to ancient contact with entities, whether divine, interdimensional, or even extraterrestrial. This has breathed new life into the ancient astronaut theory, a controversial idea that suggests humanity was visited and influenced by intelligent beings from beyond Earth. While this theory has long been criticized as pseudoscience, the emergence of new translations has brought fresh evidence to light, at least in the eyes of its supporters. One particularly strange inscription describes a ship of fire that descended beyond the horizon and sang like 1,000 flutes. Such poetic language might once have been dismissed as metaphor, but in the context of similar accounts across civilizations, in Sumer, in Mesoamerica, in ancient India, some researchers are beginning to wonder whether these stories were grounded in real, misunderstood events. Another newly deciphered set of hieroglyphs, found near the ancient city of Heliopolis, paints a picture of a lost epoch, what the inscriptions call the First Time, or Zep Tepi. This period, long regarded as myth, was described by the Egyptians as a golden age when gods ruled on earth and great knowledge was bestowed upon humanity. Until now, references to Zep Tepi were seen as purely symbolic, part of the mythological framework of Egyptian religion. But with AI assistance, scholars are noticing an unusually detailed structure to these stories: calendrical dates, geographical references, even engineering instructions that might point to a time far earlier than traditional timelines suggest. The text includes a description of a vast structure that shined brighter than Ra and gathered the sky's tears, possibly a reference to solar energy collection or even climate control. While that might sound like science fiction, some believe these inscriptions describe lost knowledge of environmental manipulation, something that would explain the sudden rise of agriculture and urban civilization along the Nile thousands of years ago. If true, it would mean the ancient Egyptians inherited not just spiritual beliefs from their ancestors, but fragments of advanced scientific understanding as well. Equally compelling are references to sound and vibration used for construction. One fragment, translated by I mentions a technique where stones dance when the voice is tuned. Ancient astronaut theorists and alternative engineers have long speculated that resonance frequencies could have played a role in moving and placing massive blocks in monuments like the pyramids. Now, that speculation is gaining new traction. Even mainstream archaeologists are beginning to consider that the Egyptians may have harnessed principles of acoustics or electromagnetism in ways we still don't fully understand. Perhaps most provocative are the inscriptions concerning cycles of destruction and rebirth. Several newly translated hieroglyphs speak of a sky fire and oceans walking on land, vividly describing cataclysmic events that reshaped the earth. These tales speak of entire cities swallowed by sand, rivers that turned to dust, and stars that vanished from the heavens. For years, these stories were interpreted as religious metaphors, symbolic of the eternal cycle of life and death. But now, with clearer translations, some believe these could be historical accounts of actual global disasters, massive floods, meteor strikes, or sudden climate shifts. These cataclysms are often linked to celestial patterns. One inscription outlines a complex calculation involving the precession of the equinoxes, a slow wobble in Earth's rotation that takes nearly 26,000 years to complete. This level of astronomical knowledge was never thought to be within the reach of ancient civilizations. And yet, here it was, hidden in plain sight, encoded in symbols that only now, thanks to AI, can be properly understood. Could it be that the Egyptians were not just myth makers, but astronomers and scientists working with knowledge inherited from a time long before written history? Further bolstering these theories is the uncanny resemblance between Egyptian symbols and those found in other ancient cultures. Patterns seen in the stepped pyramids of Mesoamerica, the stonework of Peru, and even the symbols on the Indus Valley seals bear similarities to Egyptian hieroglyphs. Until recently, this was seen as coincidence. But AI-driven comparative analysis is revealing shared linguistic structures and symbolic parallels that hint at long-lost connections. It's as if fragments of a universal language once existed, spread across continents before the rise of the known ancient world. There's also growing attention around spiritual concepts expressed in the hieroglyphs. Newly translated texts speak of a light within the blood, a door behind the eyes, and a path between the heart and stars. These poetic phrases are being interpreted by some researchers as insights into consciousness, energy fields, or even quantum principles, topics that modern science is only beginning to explore. Some Egyptologists argue these are religious metaphors, but the specificity and recurring nature of these expressions across different sites suggest a deeper understanding of human potential, possibly linked to meditation, altered states, or advanced mental training. In the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, one of the most talked about hieroglyphs is the so-called Dendera light, a depiction long assumed to be symbolic of creation or rebirth. But after AI reinterpretation, new meanings have emerged. Some experts now believe it represents a form of electrostatic or plasma technology. One interpretation describes the object as a serpent of light held within a womb of stone, awakened by the hand of breath. While poetic, the phrasing could point to a device, or at the very least, a profound concept involving energy generation or manipulation. But beyond the technological implications, what truly shocks many is how these translations seem to reflect a unified philosophy of existence, a belief that everything, life, death, nature, the stars, is connected through a system of patterns and harmonies. The idea that sound, light, geometry, and intention are all intertwined, and that when properly understood, this system could be used to align humanity with cosmic rhythms, leading to harmony, prosperity, and even enlightenment. This holistic worldview is mirrored in many ancient traditions, from the Vedic chants of India to the sacred geometry of Greek philosophers. The implications are staggering. If ancient Egypt truly possessed or preserved fragments of such knowledge, and if AI is only now beginning to unlock it, what else lies waiting to be discovered? Are we standing at the edge of a new understanding of human origins and potential? Or are we simply projecting modern ideas onto ancient poetry? These are the questions that now haunt scholars, scientists, and seekers alike. Even governments and private institutions are taking notice. Recently, several major research groups have begun scanning lesser-known tombs and ruins with AI-enhanced tools. Inscriptions that were once too eroded or incomplete are now being reconstructed using predictive language models. And with every new symbol translated, more connections emerge, suggesting a deeper story that spans continents and epochs, a story that may ultimately rewrite the history of civilization as we know it. For the first time in millennia, the voices of ancient Egypt are speaking clearly, their messages amplified through the minds of machines. They speak of a time when humanity lived in balance with the cosmos, when knowledge was not hoarded but shared, and when disasters served as resets for rebirth rather than final endings. They warn of forgetting, of hubris, and of the dangers of losing touch with the rhythms of nature. And perhaps, most hauntingly, they hint that we've been here before, that civilizations rise and fall in cycles, that knowledge is remembered, lost, and remembered again, and that what we discover now may not be new at all, but merely rediscovered fragments of who we once were. As more translations pour in, a pattern begins to emerge, one that suggests ancient Egypt wasn't just preserving its own knowledge, but acting as a custodian of something far older. AI has revealed that multiple temples contain near-identical passages referencing an age before kings, before the Nile, even before the current form of the earth. These inscriptions speak of a turning of the heavens, a time when the sky itself changed its law, and the land was bathed in fire, then frozen in silence. This language, once thought to be mythic or symbolic, now closely aligns with known global cataclysms like the Younger Dryas event, a sudden and dramatic cooling period believed to have ended an earlier age of advanced culture. Could it be that the priests of ancient Egypt were encoding not just stories but warnings? Lessons for the future, wrapped in the only medium they believed could survive the erosion of time: stone. Several hieroglyphs refer to the keepers of memory, individuals tasked with recording vital truths for a time when humanity would forget its origins. These keepers, according to the texts, operated in secrecy under the direction of a hidden priesthood, passing knowledge through coded rituals and layered symbolism. The fact that this knowledge is only now being revealed through the lens of artificial intelligence feels eerily like part of the plan. The texts also describe what some scholars call an ancient initiation process, a series of tests and teachings that would allow a person to awaken to higher levels of understanding. Many tombs and temples include references to a symbolic death and rebirth, not just of the body, but of perception itself. One particularly evocative line reads, "To see the truth, one must first be blind to the illusion of light." This could be interpreted as a philosophical call to unlearn modern biases in order to perceive a deeper reality. AI, as it turns out, may be the exact tool needed to bypass human assumptions and see these texts with fresh, unfiltered logic. In a broader context, these revelations challenge long-held beliefs about the linear progression of human history. Traditionally, we viewed civilization as a straight path, from primitive hunter-gatherers to modern society. But the messages buried in these hieroglyphs suggest something else entirely, a cyclical pattern of rise, fall, and rebirth. And they hint that the knowledge we pride ourselves on today may pale in comparison to what was once known and then lost. This raises profound questions about where we are now in that cycle. Are we at the height of our achievements or on the verge of repeating old mistakes? Many of the translated warnings center around themes of imbalance between man and nature, technology and wisdom, knowledge and humility. One chilling passage reads, "When the mind builds without the soul's hand, the sky shall darken and the earth shall shake." Could this be a metaphor for technological overreach? A warning about developing tools and systems without the ethical maturity to wield them? Some scholars believe we're being guided, not by extraterrestrials or gods, but by our own ancestors, people who lived through unimaginable upheavals and tried to leave a message across time, encoded in the most durable and sacred form they knew. They didn't have computers or satellites. They had symbols, myths, and geometry. They etched their messages into stone and prayed that, one day, a generation would come that could understand. Ironically, it's only now, with the help of a digital intelligence built in our own age, that we may finally be decoding those ancient cries across time. This doesn't just change how we see Egypt. It shifts our understanding of humanity as a whole. Because if these translations are even partially accurate, they indicate that ancient civilizations were interconnected in ways we've never truly considered. Through trade, through stories, or perhaps through shared trauma, they passed along seeds of wisdom designed to survive the ages. And now, with each line of code, each scanned wall, those seeds are beginning to bloom again. AI's role in this story is more than that of a translator. It's become a bridge between the ancient and the modern, the spiritual and the scientific, the forgotten and the remembered. As it continues to refine its understanding of hieroglyphs, it will likely uncover more truths, some that challenge our beliefs, others that inspire new discoveries. The future of archaeology may not be a brush gently dusting off bones, but a server humming softly in the corner, piecing together the legacy of an ancient world we're only beginning to rediscover. In the end, the secrets locked within Egypt's hieroglyphs may not just be about where we come from, but where we're headed. And maybe, just maybe, the ancients didn't want us to worship the past. They wanted us to understand it, learn from it, and evolve beyond it. With AI as our tool, and the wisdom of the past as our guide, we stand on the edge of an extraordinary journey, one that could reconnect us to a deeper sense of purpose, identity, and harmony with the world around us. The sands of Egypt have waited for thousands of years to whisper their secrets once more. And now, finally, we are listening.